Cypher. Got another episode for you today. I just want to talk a little bit about how sometimes in life, just basic stuff and then, things that we're trying to achieve or move forward with, how we get in our own way of achieving those things or just to getting the basic things done in everyday life that contribute to lifting us up to that next place, because you want to have your life in order to make the next step, or you just got, you got chaos. And I think we can get really overwhelmed in life. I mean, I know I can by certain things, and that can cause hesitation, it can cause fear, uncertainty, doubt, and it can keep you from progressing to where you need to be in order to achieve your goals or just feel good, have happiness. A lot of these things I think are in our control. They're not always easy. And I don't think we're always aware that we're getting in our own way. And I think, some of the ways you can be getting in your own way is just not having a clear knowledge of what you're after, what you want out of life, the things that don't serve you in life, the things that don't lift you up, the things that aren't sustainable, the things that aren't doing you any good. And if you have a clear understanding of those things and where you want to go, where you are, where you want to be, there's going to be a lot of questions that might come your way that you're going to have an instant answer for, right? For example, you're like, man, I don't have a ton of free time between my job and my other responsibilities, and I got this other thing that I'm grinding on the side that I'm trying to make, maybe a future career goal, self-employment. But in the meantime, you have a job and all these other responsibilities that you have to juggle while you're working to create that thing. Okay, and then you know that you have very limited time. Maybe you haven't acknowledged that yet, so that's something you want to acknowledge. You want to look at, like, say, I only have this much amount of time, right? So you make that a truth to yourself. You've accepted that. It's not something you have to debate about anymore. You say, I only have 20 hours a week outside of my normal responsibilities and my current job. So it's those 20 hours are the 20 hours I need to utilize if I want to make this happen. Okay, so you've acknowledged that one thing and you said, okay, that's what I want to do. So you don't have to think about it anymore. People ask you what you want to do, you're like, well, I want to do this and I have 20 hours a week to work on it. This is what I'm doing. Like, so you have that figured out. So someone asks you, you're not like, oh yeah, I've thought about doing this, I've thought about doing that, because then you're still in the hesitation stage, you haven't, or fear and uncertainty or whatever, distractions. So then you say, okay, I got that 20 hours. So then you start realizing the things that could pull you away from that. People inviting you out to go get drinks, to party, do other things, right? So if you play out that situation in your mind, you're already going to have your answer, and you're not going to have to deliberate over it and cause yourself unnecessary stress, because you already decided what your goal is. And you decide you're not going to get in your way anymore. So you're not going to have to deliberate about these things, right? Someone says, hey, Friday we're going to go out, we're going to have a ton of fun. We're actually going to go away for the weekend. A bunch of people are going to be renting some places. We're going to be doing this. And you're like, man, that sounds like fun, right? But you've already gone through in your head that you want this future goal, this thing that you're grinding for on the side, is your top priority. And you know that you need the limited amount of time that you do have in order to make that happen. And you've decided that that's more important at this moment than, some extracurricular things, going and having fun. So when people ask, you're not like, should I do it? Should I not do it? And you go through this whole deliberation stage, you put yourself through the gauntlet of, but I could be missing out, I could be doing this. You've already made that decision and you have a quick answer, right? So you're getting out of your way by saving yourself all that unnecessary thought, in the moment, if you've already concluded what your goal is. So by getting rid of those little distractions through the day and just drawing a straighter line towards where you want to be, you're going to get out of your own way. If you constantly are being inundated by questions and you're constantly entertaining them, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because like just today, there's been a few things that have come up where I'm like, wow, that's a good opportunity. That's something I want to think about, right? So you have to take it through the filter, but your filter is your goal or where you want to be, right? And if this is something that came up that fits into that, then that's part of that goal, that's part of that path. But there's all these other things, you know what I mean? You know, like you could get distracted by something else that could be something potentially good, but is different than your goal. So now you're getting in your way and you're spreading your energy between two things. So, and then the other thing too is just like relationships, you know, you could have some difficult relationships, you know, you could just have some friends that you care about, but you know, maybe where they're at in life, they're not trying to achieve the same things, same goals you are. And maybe it's something where, you know, you have to look at how much time you're spending with people that's not getting you to where you want to be. It's just, you know, conversation, hanging out. So you have that conversation in your head and you go through that. So you know how you're going to reply in those situations. And what this does is it gets rid of all these what ifs and all this in your head. You know what I mean? There's always going to be things that catch you off guard, you know, but for the most part, I've already decided, I've already climbed this mountain in my head, you know, the metaphoric mountain or whatever in my head. And it's going to clear the path for you to cruise closer to your goal faster and faster. And, you know, and I think once you figure that out, you know, there was, you know, what was the Mandalorian, you know, if anybody of you guys have watched that, you know, the Mandalorian quote is like, this is the way, right? They have certain things supposedly that they've decided, like, this is the way of the Mandalorian, this is the way that we do things, you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, there's this one scene where I think the Mandalorians are coming to help the main character that's, I mean, if you've seen the show, yeah, or you at least understand the basis, right? And he's saying like, wow, you guys are helping me, you know, like, you know, you don't need to be doing this necessarily. They're like, well, this is the way. So they had no hesitation. They weren't getting in their way, like, should we help this guy? Should we do this? They've already decided this is the way, right? So if you got someone you want to achieve a goal, it could be just getting your basic life in order, you know what I mean? And that means just keeping your house clean, doing things like that, you know? Figure out what that is, what you need to do, the things that are distractions that you need to stay away from or that you need to do less of, so that when those things pop up, you know how to handle them. And then you figure out what is your way. And then when you get into situations and you're just like not knowing what to do, you know, this is the way that you have picked. You know, it's a very methodical, it's like, you know, you could consider it even like prayer potentially, depending on what you're doing. And, you know, but once you've really climbed that mountain in your head, right? Because they say that there's all these things in life that we're going to have to do, right? But before you do anything in the tangible world, you know, we think about it in our head and we climb that mountain in our head, and then we decide how we're going to do it, and then we actually climb that mountain physically, not just metaphorically in our minds. So that's one thing I think, you know, I have to constantly go back sometimes and remind myself. But there are a lot of questions that'll come up in day-to-day life or distractions that are no longer like issues for me in certain regards. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I'm doing this. That's not how I spend my time. I'm not going to get distracted with that. I'm not going to let that be a roadblock for me, you know, getting to where I want to be. And another movie that I think, you know, is once you get on this path and you start thinking about this, you know, there's that scene in The Matrix where Neo's in the car and he's kind of has the choice, you know, of like staying in the Lincoln and going and seeing how far the rabbit hole goes, or he could get out. And in Trinity was the character's like, Neo, you know what's down that road. You've been down that road before. You know where it leads. All right, so when we get to these situations where people are bringing things up, you know, or life distractions, right? Things you know you've done before. You know what that does. You know where that leads. You know, right? And it could be fun. And you know, maybe it is time to have some fun because you've been grinding so hard. But you know what that does. You know where that leads if you've acknowledged it in your head. So do you want to get out and go down that same path and continue to just spin your wheels? Or do you want to stay on path and keep going? You know, and I think it's a like a muscle memory practice, or just you know, it's something that you get better and better at, I imagine. You know what I mean? It definitely gets easier to me as soon as you just get clearer and clearer. The more often that you avoid the distractions, the roadblocks, the things that are getting in your way, the easier it is, right? Because you have to remind yourself, something comes up, and you're like, oh yeah, that'd be super fun. I want to go do that. You're like, oh yeah, no, I decided that I'm committed to doing this. So, and you've already decided that, man, that's going to give me the most benefit. That's what's going to make me happy. So that's what I'm going to do. This is the way, right? It doesn't have to be one certain way. It's not my way. It's not anybody else's particular way. It's custom built for you. And it's something that you dive into. You got to do some deep diving. It doesn't necessarily have to be prayer, but I mean, I think whenever I'm thinking to myself about something in life, in a sense to me, that is like prayer, in a less traditional sense maybe, but for me it's like I'm talking to somebody, you know what I mean? I'm communicating with God, the universe, within me, whatever. So I think that it can serve anybody well to do this, because how many things will happen in life that we spend tons of time thinking about and debating about. But if you go to your core principles, the things that you know are true to you in your heart, your soul, and you outline what fits within that parameter, and then you're being honest with yourself. You're saying, no, that goes over here. No, that goes over here. And then, because when you're serious about your goals, you're going to have to do something like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just staying out of your own way. Don't cause unnecessary hardships for yourself. You can't control everybody else's actions, but it takes two. If you're with somebody, you chose to be around that person, and therefore whatever comes from that situation, you're somewhat responsible because you chose to be there, right? You can't control what the other person's going to do in the situation, whether they're getting off track and they're distracting you, and then you feel like you're wasting your time. But you have the choice to be there, and in relationships, you might be having issues in a relationship where you're just like, man, they're treating me bad. But you got to also acknowledge that you chose to enter that relationship, and that why you can't control the other person's actions, that you are responsible because you got yourself into that. So, and I'm not saying to anybody like this is even like, I mean, this is like we've said in the other episodes. I think T said it too. Like these are things that we discussed, are the things that we're working on too, and the things that we're thinking about. So we're just trying to generally express things that we're thinking about that we feel other people might be going through and could relate to and resonate with. All right, so just to wrap this up about not getting in your own way, I think a lot of us were raised with certain principles and morals that gave us those answers to certain situations in life that would cause us, harm, or cause us to get in our own way of moving forward, because they would be distractions, or they would be, they wouldn't be serving us well, so that we would be taking a step back, or just really just spinning our wheels, wasting time. So, you definitely have those basics, but as you grow and evolve into life, and life evolves too, you're going to have new situations, new things to encounter. There's going to be tons of good ideas, and but you want those great ideas. You want those really, really solid ideas. There's tons of good ideas. Tons of things that can distract you. Tons of things you could do, for a career, ways you could spend your time. So if you go through this metaphoric climbing of the mountain in your head and figuring out what path is really what you want, and what's going to benefit you and what's going to not benefit you, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache in life as you have to encounter these different situations. So that's all I got for you right now today. I hope you enjoyed this. This is just us, the Grown Man Cypher, talking about things that we experience and that we think might resonate with other people, and hopefully you get some value from this. And that's it. So we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.